Hello, welcome back to Reading with Opinions. My name is Emmy, like the award, and today I'm going to be ranking some TikTok books. I'm sure you've seen these videos before, a lot of people have done them, but I just really felt like judging some books today, so let's dive in. So to find the books for this video, I went through other BookTok ranking videos, and I also went through some lists that I found on websites, like I went through Barnes & Noble's list of BookTok books, I went through Goodreads' list of BookTok books, and that was a trip. There's some weird shit on there that I did not expect. I'm not sure how that ended up there, but I don't think that's accurate. But anyways, we got a mix of some old favorites that everyone has seen on BookTok, and we got a mix of some ones that I was kind of surprised to see, but I'm gonna rank them anyways because why not? Let's check out the tiers first. I have 7 tiers, which is arguably too many, but that's fine. So at the top we have literally life-changing. So these are the books that have probably had a major impact on my life. They're probably going to be books that I read a really long time ago and I'm just unable to get out of my brain. Like, I think about them constantly. I love these books. These are going to be the GOATs. Next tier down is Wow. Like Owen Wilson's Wow.
Wow.
And these are books that I loved, but maybe they just haven't had that major impact on me, but still would highly, highly recommend. We'll definitely talk about these books a lot. Next is Liked It. Pretty self-explanatory. Liked it, not gonna rave about it, not gonna shout it from the mountaintops. Next is Aggressively Average. So these are probably the books that I know I've read, but I couldn't tell you a single thing about them. Like, did I read them though? These are the books that were just so middle of the road, so average, that I couldn't tell you one single thing about them. And it doesn't mean I didn't like them, it just means that they were boring. Next tier down is What a Great One Idea You Had. And this tier is gonna be a lot of those YA dystopian books. They just had this one really great idea, and then that book is the idea. Plot, middling. Characters, really not there. But that was a great idea, and for that reason, I will finish your book. Am I gonna like it like a year down the road? Not so sure. Next tier is Why Are We Pretending Like This Is Well Written? There are BookTok books that have become so famous, and I really couldn't tell you why. The actual writing of the person who wrote it is not good at all. And then the last tier is also pretty self-explanatory, which is Science needs to progress so I can remove this book from my brain. These are books that I wish that I hadn't read, and science needs to hurry up and get there because I am wasting valuable brain space on remembering the contents of these pages. Okie dokie, let's begin. First is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I'm glad this one is first because I feel like that means I can talk about a phenomenon that I constantly feel like happens with BookTok books. I see this book recommended by every single person that I follow, and that makes me think that it is going to be the most incredible book that I have ever read in my entire life, when it's not. And that's not the book's fault. Like, I think 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo is fine, but I didn't love it, and I think for that reason I was disappointed. My main problem with it was actually the person whose perspective we were reading from, the narrator, because we knew so little about her, and I felt that very jarring. I can't even remember her name at this point. Monique! I found it online. Yeah, Monique was boring, I'm sorry. And I just wasn't a fan of the twist at the end, where her character was just kind of shoehorned in to have this great plot twist. I just wasn't, I couldn't bring myself to care about her, and that really brought the book down for me. However, the 7 Husbands portion of the 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, I did actually really enjoy. Also, my computer has just decided it needs to turn the fan on, so sorry about any dip in audio quality. So, 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, I'm gonna put in Liked It. I liked it. I don't think it's like a generation-defying novel like a lot of people seem to think, but I liked it. I thought it was fine. Okay, we have a lot of books to get through. Let's get moving. Invisible Life of Addie Larue, I actually felt similarly, where, again, so many people talk about this book, so many people love this book. I really like the concept, but just like the execution was not very good in terms of the world building, in terms of how boring Addie Larue herself was. Like, sorry. That was not fun to read about. I don't know. I feel like it works perfectly in what one great idea you had, but I think it was better than that. That's the thing, because I did enjoy reading it. It's just like the more I read, the less I liked this book. And I can't really remember that much about it, and I only read it a few months ago. So I think I'm going to put it in aggressively average. This is an average book. All right. This is the first not good one for sure. The Alchemist. I read this book a really long time ago, and I read it in high school, I believe, which for me is like more than 10 years ago at this point. And I remember just seeing all over like, this is the newest, greatest book. If you like fantasy, read this book. And I like slogged my way through it. I hated it. I thought it was so boring. And I'm going to put this in why are we pretending like this is well written? Because it's not, from what I remember. And you know what? Some of you might feel like I'm being too mean. And maybe I am, but you know what? It's only books. All right, in Enchantment of Ravens by Margaret Robertson. So I just read this like a couple weeks ago, actually. It was one of the books that got chosen in my dice game TBR video. And I had zero expectations about this book. I didn't know it was a book talk book, and then I found it on one of those lists. I was like, oh, interesting. So I thought this one was average. I've heard it's a lot like ACOTAR, A Court of Thorns and Roses, which I haven't read. I cannot bring myself to get into the whole like fae, fairy, hotness, immortal, magical penis, whatever the fuck I read. Whatever ACOTAR is, I'm not interested. I've heard too much about it and I don't want to read it. But this book, I thought it was pretty average. I want to almost put it in one great one idea you had, but I didn't like the idea, so I'm not sure if that qualifies. I didn't think it was well written either. It was fine. I think I'm going to put it in aggressively average. And maybe I'll adjust that later. This is my first tier list. I'm very indecisive. Okay, I am going to put it below The Invisible Life of Addie Larue because I thought that was definitely better. Okay, moving on. The Atlas 6. I believe that this is the first book that I ever talked about negatively on my channel, which would have been in my first video, which was the mid-year book tag, which was a disappointing book. I actually wasn't disappointed in this because of book talk, because I found this just in a regular bookstore and I was like, oh my gosh, like a magic school and also like death and dark academia, sign me up. But this is not a well-written book. If you're going to have a magical library, you need to have more descriptions of the library, more descriptions of the academia, and less descriptions of how they all want to fuck each other. So I'm going to put it in what great one idea you had, because I enjoyed the concept. It's just execution-wise, you could have put that story anywhere, not in a magical library, like there was not enough world building. Not it for me. Becoming by Michelle Obama. I was quite surprised to see this on several lists. I did not know that Michelle Obama was book talk famous. Yeah, that's her claim to fame, sure. I really love this book. I think it is so well written. I think it's a book that regardless of your political affiliations, she doesn't really talk much about Obama, like President Obama. And I just think it's super well written, a super interesting glimpse into her early life. I love this book. I'm going to put it in wow.
Wow.
You think I'll put an Owen Wilson sound every time I put a book in that tier? Maybe. Not going to put it in literally life-changing because I don't really think about that book all that much. I'm sure it is literally life-changing for some people, just not for me, but I loved it. One of the best celebrity books that I've read. All right, The Book Thief. I'm so pleased that this book has had a resurgence on Book Talk and that the younger generations are getting into it. I think that this book is absolutely amazing, and I'm going to put it in life-changing, literally life-changing, if I can get up there. Let's stop that. There we go. Book Thief is an amazing depiction of what life was like for German families in the Holocaust, and it is written from the perspective of Death himself. It is a just completely stunning book. I think the last time I read it was like 10 years ago, and I still remember so much about it. I still think about it. That's what we're looking for literally life-changing tier. Okay, next book. Bridgerton. I mean, I'm not going to pretend like I would have read this if I hadn't watched the series. As far as romances go, especially Regency-era romances, I liked it. I had a good time. I feel like the standards for these types of romances. Like, it's weird talking about Becoming by Michelle Obama and then talking about Bridgerton. No one is reading Bridgerton for high literature. Let's get that clear. But honestly, I did enjoy it. That is a little bit spoiled by some, shall we say, controversial elements in the book. So I'm not really sure where to put it because I enjoyed it until that happened. However, I will say that this was published in 2000 and like, I hate it when people pull the it was a different time card, but like things that were acceptable was a different time for sure. Like, I don't know if anyone's read any books by Johanna Lindsay, which a lot of them were written in the 80s and 90s, and ooh, you want to talk about glorifying sexual assault. So I'm actually going to put this in aggressively average because I am going to make allowances for when it was published. I don't think it's okay. I don't think it would, get the green light today necessarily. But as far as Regency romances go, I thought it was fine. I also don't really remember much about it, but I remember having a good time while reading it. So I'm going to put it above Enchantment of Raisins. What if there was a series about enchanted raisins? That sounds... I'd read it, honestly. Let's talk about Divergent. This is going straight in the what a great one idea you had, because what a great idea it was. And then you get into the actual world and you're like, oh God, this isn't well written at all, is it? I think the concept carried the first book. If anyone's read any of the other books, God, it gets really boring. Just like no development of the world whatsoever. Okay, Eat, Pray, Love. I was surprised to see this book on several lists. And honestly, I feel like Eat, Pray, Love gets a lot of flack that perhaps maybe it doesn't deserve. I know it's like such a meme, like, oh, a wealthy white woman is depressed and then she like takes literally a year off of work and goes to travel to find herself to cure her depression. And like, I understand the privilege. I get it, but also it's a really well-written book. She is wealthy, but also like travel porn, Travel porn is fun to read. I will also say, like, having her go on this journey, I really enjoyed reading about it. When I read it for the first time, I was also going through some mental health stuff, and I found this book very helpful. So I'm going to put it in I liked it. I have not felt the need to read it in the years since, but I remember enjoying it and having a good time. So... Eragon. I think it's actually pronounced Eragon, but when I was a kid and I read it, I always thought it was Eragon, so Eragon. I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say that this series legitimately sparked my love of fantasy. And I know that's hilarious because, like, since becoming an actual adult and reading more fantasy, I'm like, oh yeah, Christopher Paolini, as a 15-year-old, he definitely, like, borrowed a lot of things from other authors. Like, there's a lot from Lord of the Rings, especially. But he was 15, and he did a really good job. And, like, I'm still a huge fan of that series. I think it's great. I'm going to actually put it in loved it. Because I'm not sure, I'm going to put it in wow.
Wow.
I'm not sure if it deserves the literally life-changing tier, even though I did just say that it might have literally changed my life. I think it gets knocked down in retrospect for, how it did kind of copy some other series, but I think it's still really, really good. And I'm going to put Eragon above Becoming by Michelle Obama. Just in terms of the impact that it had on me as a kid, I'm going to put it at the top of wow.
Wow.
All right, Fangirl. This is an interesting one because, again, this is one where I was kind of surprised to see it on several book talk lists. I read this one a while ago, and it's in the books that I have downloaded on my phone. So, like, every so often when I'm, like, eating alone in a restaurant, I'll re-download it and read some of it. So I remember this book quite well. I do really like it. I think that Kath especially is a really well-developed character. I'm not as much of a fan of Levi. He's kind of a pick-me boy, if that's a thing. Good boy. He's back. So I've definitely read it more than other books I have on this list, but that really is just because of the copy that I have is digital. So I'm going to put it in liked it, because I do like some elements. I don't think it's a book that's really stayed with me all that much. I'm going to put it above Eat, Pray, Love. I don't think it's as well written as The Seven Husbands, but that's where we're going to leave Fangirl. Next is The Fault in Our Stars. Yeah, I know it's like a meme, a tragedy porn. That's the criticism that it gets, is that it is kind of tragedy porn-esque, and it did spawn a lot of movies and what have you that kind of glorify illness, which is not great. But I don't think that's this book's fault, because I think that this book is really, really amazing. And if you look at what John Green was inspired by, who he was inspired by, someone he knew with cancer, I think this book takes on a whole other meaning. I'm going to put it in loved it, because I really did love this book. I still love this book, and I think it's good, and it stands the test of time on reread. Next we have the Flatshare by I Don't Remember, and I'm just going to put this one in aggressively average, because I remember reading it, I remember enjoying it, and I don't remember anything else about it besides the fact that they share a bed. I did definitely read this one because of BookTube. I saw it recommended a lot. I'm going to put it above Enchantment of Ravens and Bridgerton. I think it was better than that. Okay, now we're getting into the good shit. Let's talk about 50 Shades of Grey. This book sucks. I'm just going to say it. If you're into that type of thing, there are better things you can read. And I say that without looking. I'm pretty sure there are better things that you can read. It's just bad, man. Like, I'm not even talking about the themes and how, like, yeah, it's definitely an unhealthy relationship, and that's totally being glorified because he's rich and, like, hot, apparently, but, like, just in terms of the writing, it's so bad. And I don't know why I read it. Why did I do that to myself? Yeah, I wish I could unread what I had written. There are some scenes in there where just, like, I can laugh about it, but, like, Jesus Christ. Fucking tampon scene. Moving on from that nightmare. Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. I read this quite a while ago. I remember tearing through this book, which is always a good sign with a thriller. I need to know what happened. I think I finished that book in under a day. And I'm going to say that I liked it. I liked it quite a bit. I'm going to put it at the top of liked it, actually, because I remember it being really amazing. All right, The Great Gatsby. Again, was surprised to see this, so I'm glad that teenagers are discovering the classics. That's great. I might have read this too long ago to put it on this list, because I remember so little about this book, and I did read it in 9th grade, and I think I should reread it, because I don't think it is possible that I understood what this book was about. So because of that, I do remember liking it. I'm going to just put it at the bottom of liked it, because that was my impression at the time. And yeah, okay, we're getting on to some Emily Henry. People We Meet on Vacation. I don't think this is her best book, and I did enjoy it. I didn't think that the romance in that book between the two main characters was necessarily all that compelling. Like, they are total opposites, and that is the point. But when they were written together, it was difficult for me to see, like, any chemistry, unfortunately. I think I'm going to put this, because I did enjoy reading it. It was difficult for me to understand why they should be together. So I think I'm going to put it in liked it. I'll put it above, I'll put it right there. All right, I only found The Way of Kings on one list, but if you've watched the videos on my channel, you know that I'm a massive Brandon Sanderson fan, and that is going at the top of literally life-changing. I would say that this book is what got me back into reading on some level. I was kind of in a rut for a while where I was just rereading the same books, was very bored, especially with fantasy. I just didn't really know what was out there, and then I think I saw a Daniel Green video where he recommended The Way of Kings, and I was like, so in love with this book, so in love with this world. I love all the characters. Cannot wait for the final installment in this section of the Stormlight Archive. I'm a huge, huge fan of this book and the series and this author, and I am a Sander stan, as you will. This will probably be my favorite book of the entire video because I think that it is stunning. Next up is my favorite Emily Henry book, which is Book Lovers. I think it's by far her best. And I'm definitely going to put it in wow, because it made me go, wow. Wow. I think it's by far the most believable romance. I love the tension between the two characters. More than that, I enjoyed the relationship between the main character and her sister. I thought that was so well done. It added a new dimension to the book. I was just a huge, huge fan. I'm going to put it just below Eragon, actually, because that was one of my favorite books that I've read this year. I Really enjoyed it. Read it in like a day. And then finally for the Emily Henry trio, I have Beach Read. And I'm going to put this one at the top of aggressively average because I remember reading it, but it was definitely my least favorite of hers, and I can't even really remember anything about the main characters except the main one was a writer. But I'm definitely putting it at the top because I liked it better than all of the other books in that tier. Maybe I'm gonna put it in liked it actually, because I feel like it's unfair to put it below The Great Gatsby when I don't really remember that book. Here's the other Rainbow Rowell book that I've read, which is Carry On. So Carry On is the book, it's like a fictional book that's written by the main character in Fangirl, and then Rainbow Rowell wrote the book that the main character wrote, and now it's a real book. Yes. I think this book is fine, and I'm going to put it in aggressively average because I enjoyed it. The world is just not very well developed. I would be hard pressed to tell you anything about it, even though I have read this book a couple times. I also have this one downloaded on my phone. And I like the relationships between the characters. It's just the magic system for me is not well developed enough, and it's one of those ones where if you start to question things, it breaks down a little bit. So I'm going to put it below The Invisible Life of Addie Larue. Next up is The Hunger Games. I think that The Hunger Games is fine. Don't hate me. It really is the type of book where it has one concept, and that's kind of it. And if we're looking at all of these dystopian YA novels, it's definitely better than Divergent. It's definitely better than Atlas 6. And I did enjoy it more than that. But in terms of the actual writing, I'm not so sure about that. If we're going off of just my enjoyment of it, it needs to go in liked it. Because I recognize that there are problems with it, but also I had a much better time reading it than I did with like the Enchantment of Ravens or Bridgerton. So I'm gonna put it above Beach Read actually. I think I enjoyed it more than that. Okay, I, Robot. This is again a bit of a controversial opinion because Isaac Asimov is like the father of science fiction. He was a huge influence on the genre, like honestly kind of invented it. And it's just like he was made for this tier. And I'm sorry, because I know it's a different time and we're judging things on that, but if we're going off of my enjoyment, it's like, oh, cool, you're writing about robots. And then in terms of characters and in terms of plot, it's so straightforward. He really doesn't have characters, in my opinion. It's just the concept. So I'm going to put it at the top of what a great one idea you had, but he's not going higher than that. I'm sorry. I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy is going straight up to Wow. Because Wow, one of the best books I've read in a really long time. I thought it was amazing. So well written. If I talk a lot about it, I made a whole video on it. It's the only video I've made so far where I only talk about one book, but I thought it was great. I'm going to put it above Book Lovers, and that's where she's going to live. Okay, next up is The Inheritance Games, and that's gonna go straight into liked it because I thought it was good. Do I think it's a great book? No, but I liked it and I thought it was good, and I don't have anything else to say about it. It's going to go above Fangirl. Okay, It Ends With Us. So this is another reason why I wanted to make this video, is because I need to walk back some of my comments on Colleen Hoover. Not in a good way. I'm not going to say anything good about her. So I had this whole week of reading Colleen Hoover books, and It Ends With Us and Verity were the last two that I read. And in my video, I said that I was so pleasantly surprised that I enjoyed them. I would recommend them. I don't know that I wouldn't recommend them, but also she's not a good writer. I'm sorry. Like, the way that she puts words together does not make me happy. And I'm sorry that I have to put it that way, but that's just the way it is. She's not a good writer. And if it Ends With Us, I think it's a really beautiful concept, but her protagonist is named Lily Bloom, and she's a florist, for God's sakes. And I think I felt so much pressure to say something good because everyone loves that book, but also I had just read 3 previous, not counting Verity, because I feel the same about Verity as I do with It Ends With Us, but because I had spent like the past week reading really poorly written books that were also by Colleen Hoover. When I got to one that was kind of okay, I was like, this is the greatest thing ever! And it's not the greatest thing ever. I Stockholm syndrome myself into liking a Colleen Hoover book is what I'm trying to say. So where does that leave us? I still think It Ends With Us is better than her other books, but I don't think it's that good, honestly. And I'm just gonna put it in aggressively average, and we're just gonna leave it there. And I'm hereby revoking my 4.5 star rating for It Ends With Us. I'm sorry, it's like a 3.5. It's fine. Might get my first hate comments on this video. Yeah, and I am going to put it above The Invisible Life of Addie Larue, because I think I enjoyed it more than that, but it's not getting higher than aggressively average. She's an average writer, and that's okay. The Life of Pi. Again, a book that I read quite a while ago. I've read it a few times, and I really love this book. I think it is so weird and so fun, and I am a massive fan. I'm going to put it at the end of wow.
Wow.
Maybe someday. I'd say of the Colleen Hoover books that I read, this was probably my 3rd favorite or least favorite, depending on how you want to look at it. You know what? This is why I made this tier. They're all going to end up there. It's going in Why Are We Pretending Like This Is Well Written? Because why are we pretending like it's well written? Let's be honest. Moving on. Ninth House I also read this year, and I remember liking it. I enjoyed reading from Daniel's perspective the most, and we didn't get to see as much of him as I would have liked. No spoilers. So I'm more interested in the following books, actually, but I enjoyed it, and for books that I enjoyed and that I'm not going to rave about, I put in liked it because I liked it. So I don't think I enjoyed it as much as Gone Girl, but I enjoyed it more than The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. All right, November 9 is going straight to the bottom. I wish that I could unread that book. So poorly written, such icky concepts in there. You can watch my original Colleen Hoover video if you want to hear me rant about this book some more, but did I enjoy it more or less than 50 Shades of Grey is the real question. I feel like 50 Shades of Grey is a porn book that somehow became popular, and November 9 is a novel that's bad. And I think a bad novel is actually worse. It's not E.L. James's fault that her porn is so popular with all the moms. So I guess I enjoyed 50 Shades of Grey more. And November 9 is one of the worst books that I've ever read. And I'm hereby changing my review, and it is a, 1-star book. Arson is not sexy. All right, Percy Jackson. I love Rick Riordan, and I love the Percy Jackson series. I love all of them. This series has been so influential that I still buy his books, and I am 29 years old. I started reading him when I was a youngin', and I have continued to read him because his books are just that entertaining, and that is how you do a good middle grade book, in my opinion. So I'm going to put it above Book Thief, actually. Not quite as influential on me as Way of Kings, but a literally life-changing book. Ask me anything about Greek mythology, and I'll be able to tell you at least the Rick Riordan modernized version of it. Perks of Being a Wallflower. Insert Tumblr quote here. Okay, I think this is gonna be a little bit controversial, but why are we pretending like this is well written is my question. It's not as bad as maybe Someday or The Alchemist, because The Alchemist was just boring as fuck. It's not as bad as these, so I'm going to put it at the top. But there are only so many difficult concepts that you can tackle in one very short book and have them be successful. And he tried to tackle a lot of difficult concepts, like just abuse and abortion and all of the things. And it was too short to be effective, in my opinion. And also, it just isn't well written. He's writing from the perspective of a teenager, but that doesn't mean that you have to make the teenager a bad writer. Sorry if I dissed your fave, but Perks of Being a Wallflower, I didn't really enjoy all that much. Okay, The Poppy War, which is something that I'm pleasantly surprised that, the Poppy War is in here twice. Oops. That was a mistake. I'm going to put it in Loved It, because I think that this one is pretty stunning. I think it's an amazing take on the Opium War. It is such a brutal novel to read. I still haven't read The Burning God, which is the last book in the trilogy, just because it's so intense and I can't quite work up to it. She's a force, man. I still need to read Babel as well. Okay, I'm going to put this just below The Coming by Michelle Obama. Pride and Prejudice. I'm just going to put it in Loved It, pretty self-explanatory. I like romances. I think Jane Austen is the GOAT as far as I'm concerned. And I think that'll live just above The Fault in Our Stars. Really, really, Actually, I'm going to put it just below Book Lovers, because I know that Jane Austen is the GOAT, but sometimes her novels are a little bit long for me, and I get a little bit bored. But I did really enjoy this book. I think it was great. The Silent Patient. I couldn't really get into this one. I understand why it's popular. I just think it's pretty average, honestly. I feel very middling about it. It's one of those books where I'm surprised to see that so many people love it, because I'm like, really? That one? Interesting. I'm gonna put it at I'll put it just above Enchantment of Ravens. It's fine. I said raisins again. Okay, Six of Crows. So I actually just read this book like a couple weeks ago. I have not read The Crooked Kingdom yet, so I'm not sure how I feel about the series as a whole, but I can tell you that I really didn't just like it. I really did love it. I think it's great. I love a good heist book. I love a good magic book. I love a good found family misfits book. And this really just fired on all cylinders. I'm probably going to put it at the bottom of Wow. But I did really enjoy it. Reserving judgment until I read The Crooked Kingdom, but apparently that one is also quite excellent. The Maze Runner. Judging by the other books I have in this tier, it's just going in there. Like, it's so cool. It's a maze. What else? Who knows? Not me. I did finish the series. I also can't stand series where the end of it is like, it was the government the whole time. Fuck you. Write something better. Come up with a better concept. I'm so sick of you just making it be the government. It's lazy. It's lazy and it's overdone. I think I enjoyed Divergent more. I couldn't tell you one single character from The Maze Runner. It was so boring. And then they all died. Spoilers. The Night Circus. All right. I did enjoy this book, and I almost wish I had made a tier that was called It Didn't Quite Stick the Landing. This is like one of the most enjoyable books for me in terms of just how the author uses words and puts them together. Her sentences are like, they're delicious. They're so good. But I thought the ending was pretty predictable. Yeah, it just didn't quite stick the landing like an acrobat in the Night Circus. So I'm going to put it in Liked It. I think if the ending had been less predictable, it would definitely be like in a wow, or maybe literally life-changing, because my God, her prose is so amazing. But it was fine. I'm going to put it below People We Meet on Vacation. It was fine. I was disappointed, but it's fine. Okay, the Poppy War. We're just going to ignore the extra Poppy War and go to The Time Traveler's Wife, which I love, and it's one of my favorite books of all time, and I'm so pleased that the youngins on TikTok have discovered it. I really just think this book is stunning. I'm going to put it in literally life-changing, actually. It really is one of my favorite books of all time. I think it is tremendous, and it is a tremendous romance. I have seen the criticism where it's like, oh, tell me more about a woman whose entire life is shaped by a man. That's not the point. Like, yes, it is the point, but you're simplifying it and you're making this book out to be a villain. It's not a villain. This is a stunning, stunning love story. And they also somehow managed to make Henry meet Claire when she is a kid and have it not be creepy. So, props for that. I'm going to put it below The Book Thief. It'll be literally life-changing, just at the bottom of that tier. Turtles All the Way Down. I enjoyed it. I did not enjoy it as much as The Fault in Our Stars. I know it's a very personal book for him, and I really appreciate that. I appreciate how much of himself he was able to put into it. I have not felt the need to read it since, and that's not because it was so horrifying or depressing. It's just I haven't. I read it once, and that was enough for me. I do think it's a good book, and I'm gonna put it... I'll put it above The Inheritance Games. I liked it. I don't think it was the level of The Fault in Our Stars. It did not make me cry. I really don't cry at books at all. I cried at The Fault in Our Stars. Whew. Okay, Twilight. I was really into Twilight when I was a kid, I'm not gonna lie. Like, before it was a movie. It's the vampires. It's the OG vampire book. I do think it gets a fair amount of hate, which is pretty deserved, honestly. Like, having her be with Edward, who's kind of creepy. I'm gonna put it at the bottom of aggressively average, because I think it's better, actually, than the books that are in the What a Great One Idea You Had tier. You know what? I keep on putting everything above an Enchantment of Ravens. Can I say Ravens? God damn it. I need to put an Enchantment of Ravens. I'm going to put Enchantment of Ravens at the top of What a Great One Idea You Had. It's going below iRobot. I think that's better. Ugly Love. What a trash fire of a book. What a garbage plot. What garbage writing. I don't care if that's mean. It's bad. I didn't enjoy it. The scene where they make out for the first time after What's-His-Face cuts himself, and then what's her other face? Tate. And then Tate gives him stitches, and they're like, oh, that's so sexy. Let's make out. Getting stitches is not sexy. And I don't know who hurt you, but that's just the worst idea for a kissing scene. This book has also been downgraded to like 1.5 stars because I think it's garbage, quite honestly. I really didn't enjoy it. It's not good. Don't read it. Don't recommend. All right, Verity. I said in my review, this is in the same boat as It Ends With Us. And I did enjoy it much more than Ugly Love or November 9. I do think it is pretty average, and that she's not a good writer. I enjoyed The Silent Patient more than that. I think they're about the same level, to be honest, but I think The Silent Patient is a little bit better written. Finally, we have When We Were Bright and Beautiful, which is actually the most recent book that I read. It's interesting because we read from the perspective of Cassie, and Cassie, you get the sense very early on that she has been pretty traumatized by her family, and we're reading what she thinks about them and what she thinks about herself. And so it requires a certain level of nuance to read this book, because you as the reader have to look at it with a critical eye and recognize that what she is saying is probably untrue, at least partially. So I think that there were problems with this book, but I did overall enjoy it, and I thought it was a really interesting examination on a number of topics. I would recommend this to some, but not all people, because it's interesting. I can't say too much without spoilers, but I'm going to put it in liked it. And I think I'll put it above Eat, Pray, Love. That's about where my enjoyment level was. Definitely enjoyed it. Okay. Let me see if there's anything I need to rearrange. I think the top tier looks pretty good. I'm going to put The Time Traveler's Wife above The Book Thief, actually. We'll switch that around. Pretty happy with the wow tier. Wow. My own jokes are so funny. Okay, I think we need to move People We Meet on Vacation up. So I think I enjoyed it more. It is weird comparing books like Turtles All the Way Down, which is like about severe mental health issues, with People We Meet on Vacation, which is just like a fun, beachy read. So it's difficult comparing my enjoyment level, but does Gone Girl deserve to be at the top of liked it? I'm not sure. I think Ninth House I enjoyed more, actually. Maybe Seven Husbands of... Yeah, I think it belongs there, actually. I feel better about that. And I think I'm also going to move the Night Circus up. Even though I had issues with the ending, I think that the overall beauty of the prose means it gets bumped up a little bit. Aggressively average. You know what? I take it back. Invisible Life of Addie and Larue is better. Yep, that's where she's living. All right, I think we're going to leave it there. From the Way of Kings to Ugly Love. All right, well, I think we're going to end it there. I really enjoyed making this video. I hope you had fun watching it. And let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I know I said some kind of controversial things, so make sure to tell me all of your disagreements. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!